Welcome, welcome back to the stream. Back to shit. Back to the stream. Back to the podcast. It is I, Dr. Rhino, and joining me very shortly will be none other than Grimngribbly of Instagram fame. If you would like an early preview of what you're in store for, exclamation point shroom, SHROOM, will get you a link over to Grimngribbly's Instagram page, where you will see all the really cool stuff that we're going to be talking about. Nat 20 streams, what's Triple D Martin, not Double D, Triple D Martin, Mando Rafa, hello, the Joy Penny Minis, who was AFK, but that's A-OK. Yeah, there you go. Go check out our boy Grimngribbly. We're going to talk about a lot of really fun stuff today, and I'm really glad you are all here to join me. Damn right. 2Ds? Not in this house. 3Ds. Oh, yeah. It's 3D o'clock. Love a good triple D. Yummy. But we have switched off the music because it is time to chittity chat with our good friend here on the podcast button. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Grimngribbly. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Look at that pretty face. Look at that man co-opting my hat.
It's all right, but mine's yellow.
His is yellow. Mine is black. Although now I have to get like a yellow hat, and I'll get it specially made just for you. I'll have a yellow beanie made, and I'll put the Dr. Rhino logo on it just for you. All right, everybody, give a warm welcome to our guest. How are you doing? And thank you so much, because for those of you unaware, Grimngribbly is across the pond, so he is staying up very late to have this chat with me tonight, and I really appreciate it. Are you still in the middle of a heat wave?
Yes. I know that Americans laugh at us Brits when we complain about it getting hot. It's 40. It was 40 degrees here. That's centigrade.
So that's 95 Fahrenheit? That's hot.
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, I know it sounds pathetic to a lot of Americans, but we do not have air conditioning anywhere.
Yeah, I was about to say, your houses are all designed to hold heat in, because you're normally a very temperate climate. Nobody has AC, so you combine something that holds heat with something that that just doesn't cool off, and you have a bad time.
So, yeah, it's just an inescapable hell of stickiness. It's great. But yeah,
sounds
how are
like
you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Arm's great. Had my post-op appointment. We got the stitches taken out. I got to see all the cool pictures that they took inside my arm of everything like before and after, and it's freaking gnarly in there. when they first went in, it was really messed up. He's like, you see this should have been attached over here, but it's way the hell over here. I could fit this instrument in there in between where it should go, and up here, this is what was causing the irritation. It looked like coral, like how it's supposed to be smooth bone, but it looked like this, and no bueno. So we brought you here mostly because you clearly had nothing better to do on a Friday night, but I have lots of questions for you. And once I told everybody, we just ran the gamut really quick of all the things that you do, and people were amazed. They were blown away by the portfolio of your life. So why don't you just run through really quick some of the highlights of what you do now to just entertain yourself, and what you do for work?
I don't know how much you told people. So I've been in the hobby probably for longer than I'm willing to admit. And nowadays I actually work professionally as a model maker. Not doing Games Workshop related stuff. I work in the film industry. I've worked on a mixture of live action projects. I was involved in Blade Runner 2049 and Ready Player One in the Dark Crystal series.
Just some small indie projects here and there.
In various different roles. And at the minute I'm working at Aardman Animations, which is a very British company, but they made Wallace and Gromit and they made Chicken Run. They're making a sequel to Chicken Run right now.
To
I
Chicken Run 2, Two Cluck, Two Furious. There's a joke there, and I'm not hitting it, but someone in chat will get it. But yeah, guys, like, can we believe that we have somebody who made props for some of the biggest blockbuster films of recent memory? Blade Runner 2049 is one of my favorite movies to come. I know there are so many polarizing opinions on it, but the aesthetic of Blade Runner always just grabs me and doesn't let me go. And that film was just really enjoyable, especially when I found out Harrison Ford actually punched Ryan Gosling in the face by accident. That was a fun one. So, and you're working at Aardman now, which Wallace and Gromit, even as an American kid, like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I got access to them. Maybe my parents, but we had VHSs of a bunch of Wallace and Gromit movies, and I loved them. The penguin, fuck, I hated that penguin.
Feathers McGraw, still one of my favorite cinema villains of all time.
Little bastard.
And I just love that he's so evil, and he doesn't even have a face. He's just got a pair of little blinking eyes, nothing else, and he's just so perfectly done. He's just brilliant.
Dark, soulless eyes, like a doll's eyes. And even as a young me was drawing the parallel, like, I'm like, are they designing this thing purposefully to be like Jaws, but as a penguin?
The soulless black eyes.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, probably.
So of all, like, I mean, I really, of course, I mean, for my own personal interest, like, I mean, forget chat, but for my own personal interest, like, your work history, all the films you've worked on, and I remember you mentioning something about a certain Star Wars robot that you had some involvement with, or am I confusing you with someone else?
K2SO.
Oh yeah, my favorite. Like, everyone's like, oh, BB-8. I'm like, fuck, no. Best robot design I've seen coming out of Star Wars in recent memory is K2SO.
No, BB-8 is cute, but K2SO is just cool.
Yeah, like, he's got that. He looks like the stick figures I drew as a kid, but in, like, the best way possible. Like, the really lanky limbs, the way he walked, the way, like, just the way it held itself was just mwah.
And voiced by Alan Tudyk. Who just does everything.
He does everything. The man went to Juilliard and he voiced a chicken. So, yeah. So, what of all the projects you've done, what off the top of your head was the prop in any movie you've done that you are the most proud of? And then, if it's a different one, what is a prop that you think that you have done that people would most recognize?
Right. So my favorite one wasn't one that I made. It was one that I worked on. So I was on the Dark Crystal series as a puppet wrangler. And basically what that means is that you work on set as they're shooting the series. And my job was to be essentially repairing the puppets and keeping them in working order and keeping the performers happy and doing all the stuff that needed to be done between shots. And I was taking care of the scroll keeper and the scientist, Skeksis, for the shoot, and that was cool. That was good. Like, I got to that was the dream of a career. I got to have a whiskey with Brian Froud at the rap party, and that was pretty brilliant. For anyone who's seen Labyrinth or Dark Crystal, he was the head artist behind the whole thing, so he kind of shaped a lot of my early imagination.
Such a unique art style.
Yeah.
And between him and Jim Henson, Dark Crystal is truly a one of a kind creation that to be involved with that, like, I mean, I'm glowing with pride by proxy. Maybe that's the meds. But no, it's incredible that and that is a very very big feather that you can put in your cap.
It was a dream come true. It really, really was. And then, so I'd say they're fairly recognizable. My most recognizable prop. Do you mean that in that it's something I can point at and say that it's mine?
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah.
as much as it can be yours?
Well, probably everything I've worked on so far at Aardman, which is on a super secret project I can't tell you anything about until next year. Um, because so working as a prop maker in live action, generally you don't make anything from zero to finish, right? So one person will design the prop, one person will sculpt it, someone else will make it, someone else will mold it, someone else will cast it, someone else will paint it. It's all very process based. Um, whereas Aardman, because we're working on stop motion, and what I'm working on is a series. Everything I've made, I have designed and then made from start to finish. Um, I've made it from scratch. I've made all the molds. I cast it myself. I painted it myself. So anything I've worked on in this series, I've made completely. But
Well, yeah, that'll be pretty
but
recognizable.
yeah, it's nice.
You see
Easiest
that?
thing to
All
point.
of that, I did that.
Everything. I've still got the drawings.
And I
Um,
mean that's the craziest, because you actually kind of like beat me to my next question. Is like, elaborate for me and for the audience what the creation process actually would be for a prop, but you just kind of walked us through it. There drawings,
it's
designs, molds,
it's really
castings.
varied. Um, it's really varied, and it's very different between live action and stop motion. So the start of my career was in live action, and generally in live action you'll get a couple of technical drawings and a brief from the art director or production designer, and then you'll figure out what the prop has to do. So I'm sure everyone knows about hero props and stunt props and all those distinctions. Um, but for those who don't, a hero prop is essentially the most sort of beautiful, gorgeous version of the prop that they use in close-ups. And then a stunt prop is one that's designed to be sort of hit and thrown around. So, like using Lord of the Rings as an example, every sword had like a properly forged, beautiful copy made out of metal, but they also had like a rubber and foam copy to be used in fights. Uh, so everything we make has a very specific function. And then in stop motion, on this project, I've actually been given an awful lot of creative leeway just because it's a tiny project and we don't have the time to have detailed designs of everything. And stop motion, because it's shot in miniature, everything has to be made from scratch. You know, you can't just go to a shop and buy stuff you need to fill out the set. You have to make everything. So a lot of the time, you'll be given a fairly rough brief, and you'll probably have a copy of like the world bible or the aesthetic of the production you're working on, and then you'll just go, you know, your boss will say, right, I would like 40 shipping containers, go nuts, as long as it, you know, as long as it fits the aesthetic of the world. So I've had an awful lot of leeway, which has been really nice.
I can imagine being it be and you chat. We're gonna go through it in detail very shortly, but when this man gets the opportunity to flex himself creatively, some really crazy shit happens, and I'm sure Ardman recognized that as a net win as opposed to something to be corralled. So that actually does dovetail nicely into, I would like to pull up your Instagram here, and I want you to walk folks through. We're starting most recent. I'm not going to dig too deep, but I would like you to explain a few things for folks. Namely, how in the hell did this become a thing?
Mushrooms.
What was your fascination with myconids or or shroom people or the Smurfs that that got you to be interested in this, and not only mushrooms in general, but mushrooms as a demon's army?
That's a long story. So I've wanted to do a sort of, God, where do I start? So I really like the sort of slightly more niche and unusual and interesting factions, I guess. I always have. Um, and I particularly love sort of cults and mutants and monsters and the sort of underside of society. And I always wanted to do a sort of mutant army or a mutant gang of some sort, but didn't really know how to frame it. And then I was thinking about just other interesting stuff in the 40K universe. One of those things was the zombie virus, and I'm also very interested in nature. So I'm interested in mycology, which is the study of mushrooms. And I'm interested in insects, which is entomology, and that got me thinking about the cordyceps fungus, which is it's a real fungus. It inspired the Last of Us game series, which I actually hadn't played when I started this project, but everyone assumed I had. So then I did, and I mined it for reference. But it's a parasitic mushroom that takes over its host, and it's grim as hell, and it's gross. And I thought it would be an absolute perfect uh, sort of basis for a project. So I was doing the sort of cultists for a while, so the sort of infected human followers. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half. And I've sort of refined the idea now to the point where I'm building creatures that are just the fungus, just this sort of alien creature. If you've played Halo and you know what the Flood looked like, it's that sort of idea. And as for why they're demons, that's more just that's just a big part of my approach to modeling and model making. So I really like doing my own thing, coming up with my own story, my own designs, same as I do in work. And so usually I just pick an army and use the rules as like a springboard. So like the cultists, I used the Gene Stealer cult rules because it would allow me to make some sort of mutants and beasties.
Mm-hmm.
And because they've got the sort of interconnectedness that I really wanted to include. And then the Slanesh demons I've gone for just because of their sort of soporific and drug-related attributes. They've got a lot of abilities that relate to them stunning things in their area and sort of messing with the minds of their opponents, I guess. So that made sense to me in sort of what it would be like to face these things on the field, I suppose. I'm not much of a gamer, but I just find having a rules framework is really helpful to inspire me, because then I know, right, I need this kind of infantry, I need a monster this big, I need a cavalry unit, and that kind of helps inspire me to think about what I'm going to make next.
So I love that idea of, and funny enough, I've never done that. I've always just made up my own stuff. I've always just said, oh, you know what, I'll just make up my own. And there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, folks. There's nothing wrong with making up your own custom lore and just going nuts with it and having fun with it. Screw the existing universe. But the idea of looking at the actual mechanics in the game, like reading the text of a spell or a warlord trait and being like, there's something to this. I could turn this into an actual like physical manifestation or show how would this actually affect people, and that's great.
How do I represent this?
Yeah. Exactly. And I feel that is like, if folks at home are looking for moments to like take a, oh hey Capper's here, if people wanted to take a little note and be like, oh hey look, this is the kind of thing to write down, this is one of those things. I am blown away by your, and have been from the moment I saw your work, your control of your materials. And being that this is like your day job, it goes without saying that you are a master of your craft. But how in the living hell do you get such... Let's start with the basics of the basics. What material is this? Is this milliput? Is this... What kind of putty is this that you're working with through here?
It's usually a mixture of milliput and epoxy sculpt.
Epoxy sculpt. Okay, I've never worked with that before.
Stuff. So I generally use 3 different putties mixed to different ratios depending on what I want to do. But it's probably a mixture of green stuff and epoxy sculpt.
Okay. Because like the gray color is what's throwing me off, because milliput is like very clearly like yellowy, and green stuff is, well, green. So when I see
Yeah,
this
it's
off gray, I'm like, what are you doing, man? Because and the best part is you do have these great like kind of like process shots, which I always forget to take. So I see that you're using like braided copper cable and beads. So you
yeah.
build up the putty around this.
Yeah, so the cable is really just to act as like an armature and to support it. And I'm also sort of so I'm working on the really big guy at the minute. And everything I make, I start off with a sort of wire armature, which is what I would do if I was sculpting something for a film. And then you build the putty around it, and it's a great way of sort of posing it and figuring it out as you work, I suppose.
Okay. And it seems necessary given how you're using like I know that like a back carapace piece is from like a Tyranid, and
Yeah,
that's like all I know. Everything else looks like obviously there's some GW bits here, but there's so much of this. I would venture Jesus, like here's a zoanthrope or something tentacle, but so much of this is just you and your armatures and like, oh, I'll put a piece of cable here and wrap some stuff. The building out of this sort of a creation it is a it is a place I have yet to go and am very scared to go.
you should. It's fun. It's
I
terrifying, but it's fun.
once I have use of both of my hands and work through my backlog of like 30 models, then I'll take it on.
Good.
I want to try that because like I'd recently spoilers everybody. I'd recently like kind of realized that like my custodies, like the challenge of like that was the furthest of sculpting I'd ever gotten of like I'm going to cut the leg, I'm going to pin the leg longer and then sculpt the gap. That was the most sculpting I'd ever done on a mass scale. And the challenge of it was great. And by the time I finished, I'm like, I'm really excited to play this army. And I played it on Play on Tabletop, and that was great. But then I kind of realized, I'm like, I actually don't like the mechanics of playing Custodes. Crap. I have 4,500 points of an army that I don't want to really play anymore. So I'm probably gonna have to sell it and then buy something else. But so yeah, you heard it here first, folks. DM me your offers for my Custodes. But I am or for my Custodes. But this, your latest creation, like this shows that you're really ramping up into your production process because you created a mold for your mushroom caps. Also,
Yeah.
before we come back to the mushroom caps, I just realized I'm like the mind control, the mind control fungus, and the way you had those like little like spine ones coming out of the heads. I remembered what I saw those on. I saw that fungus infect an ant on a Discovery Channel special. And it makes it like wander back to the hive where its head explodes and infects more ants or some nonsense. But it's, oh boy, terrifying
Yeah,
stuff.
there
And yeah, I'd
are
totally forgotten that was an
lots
inspiration
of
for Last of
moths and
Us.
spiders and caterpillars
Yeah.
and lots of invertebrate species.
Ugh.
I've
Yuck.
got a massive folder of reference saved.
So, what did you make you this mold out of?
So that's actually custom resin, but it's I made it at work, and it's
Oh,
just a couple of different sizes of googly eyes and glass beads stuck to a bit of MDF that I made a quick mold of.
oh shit! That yeah, that would be exactly what that is.
Yeah,
Huh?
just anything vaguely dome shaped.
God, that see, that's so cool that you have access to like really cool tools through your job to facilitate your personal hobby.
It's helpful.
And so there's a lot of the sage old wisdom that when your hobby becomes your job, it stops being a hobby, starts being a job. And I know that seems weirdly straightforward, but there's the fear that doing something that you enjoy for fun as your job kind of sucks the fun out of it. How do you go to work, make models, paint models, like go through this entire creative process and then come home and then be like, time to relax. I'm gonna make more models. Which we're gonna get to all of your plethora of other hobbies, including, as you may have saw there a second ago, our boy juggles because of a particularly cool element of his past. And he also, what is it? You communicate with pigeons. You collect pigeons. You
Yeah. No, I just like him. I just yeah. um, my girlfriend's into bird watching, and it's kind of rubbed off. And yeah, I just find them particularly funny.
they they do have a very goofy look about them,
Yeah,
which is crazy how close they look to a dove, yet a dove looks serene and beautiful and poised, and a pigeon's just like, what?
kind of scrappy and gross and covered in oil.
So you how do you avoid this sort of, or even if you do, what's been your experience having a job where you hobby and then a hobby where you hobby in our hobby terms?
Hobby. It's it's taken practice. It's taken a couple of years to find a sort of careful, comfortable balance, I suppose. When I first started doing this job, my hobby output basically fell to zero. And then I sort of flip flopped and went the other way and did way too much. And then over lockdown, I found a bit more of a sort of sensible balance, I suppose. Um, but I don't know. So because I work as a creative, but everything I make is for other people, right? I never own anything that I've made. So a long time ago, I learned not to be too invested in the end product, because if I'm only ever making something for the result, then I'm just going to end up being miserable every time I finish a job. And then I have to give the thing I've made away to the client. So instead, I've just really taught myself to really enjoy the process. Which is probably why my projects tend to just languish and go on for ages and ages and ages, because I'm spending too much time enjoying making the thing and not actually getting it done. But um, yeah, my hobby output nowadays is a bit more sporadic than it used to be, because I am working full time as a model maker. Um, so generally, my day at work will be, I'll spend all day at work. I'll I'll go for a skate at lunch. I usually go out on my rollerblades for about an hour halfway through the day, and then I'll come home. I'll do something active, so I might go and do some juggling in the park, or I might do some more skating. And then when I want to decompress and relax, then I might do a bit of hobby stuff, and that would be sculpting or just nibbling away at a long term project that I've had for a while without any pressure of a deadline. Because working in film is really intense and the stress level is really high and the deadlines are insane. So it's sort of nice just to be able to nibble away at a project and know that it doesn't matter when or if I get it finished, I can just enjoy
That perspective actually was like perfect. Like that, it crystallized everything in my head. The idea of like making something for someone else versus making something for yourself, deadlines, no deadlines. Like all of my stuff I've only ever done for me. Well, okay, that's not true. I've done a few client things, but I get them done so fast, I'm right back to doing my stuff. So it really didn't matter in my eyes. But the idea where if my job was like machining and I come home and I'm like, I want to build stuff. The difference being you're building something for someone else versus building it for you. I could definitely see how that would affect the mentality of, or excuse me, the mentality attributed to the project and therefore like how you feel about it. Plus being able to have, like, you have active hobbies, like go outside, go rollerblading, go juggling, and the only one I have is painting. If I lose it, as you guys can see, I lose my mind. I don't know what to do anymore. So I started playing video games again. I'm like, this is not nearly as fun as it used to be. I want to be painting right now. But I definitely need to give I need to give a more serious sculpt approach a try, because I've stuck bits together, but I've never seriously green stuffed anything except a head of hair. That's like beginner level green stuff work.
Yeah,
Which,
but I mean, it's not a problem. Like, if you start yourself off with something that you're comfortable with and that you're not going to find too intimidating, then you'll enjoy it more, and you're more likely to want to do it again, right?
well, yeah, it's the difference between you saying, "Hey Doc, why don't you try green stuffing a head of hair on this model?" versus, "Hey Doc, make a mushroom guy like mine." Go. No, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Go ahead. Yeah, one sounds fun, one sounds terrifying and intimidating.
Yeah.
So in that
Fair.
vein, if someone's looking at what you've done, again, if you guys want to go scroll through all of our guests' Instagram yourself and take a look at everything, ! Shroom, SHROOM, on Discord or right here in chat. We'll get you a link to his Instagram page. Please be sure to give him a follow and go check out and like all of his awesome work. But say someone gets inspired by you and wants to take a stab at making not even necessarily a mushroom model. Just they want to start doing more sculpting. Maybe this guy is me. What would be some of the beginner's advice? What tools, techniques, like, when I've found like I can't seem to get my timing right with when I should be working my green stuff. I always feel like my green stuff either is way too soft and sticky, even with the appropriate application of Vaseline or water or whatever to try to minimize stick. It always is either too sticky or like I turn away and come back and it's instantly too hard. So like, what sort of working tips would you have for someone just getting started?
So that's a big part of why I mix green stuff with epoxy sculpt, because which is a trick I learned from another guy on Instagram, modern synthesist.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, his
super lovely guy,
Tyranids are amazing.
unbelievable sculptor, really nice guy. But that's what he does. I think he calls it epoxy green, and I think he learned it off something else. So we're just passing the wisdom down. But so green stuff by itself is super sticky, and it's almost like sculpting with chewing gum.
Mm-hmm.
And epoxy. So if you're familiar with the properties of, say, milliput is much softer than green stuff, but it kind of tears and it leaves a residue on your fingers.
Yeah.
Epoxy sculpt has similar properties to milliput, but it's not quite so soft and it doesn't tear in the same way. And it's not nearly so messy, which is the main reason I like it, because it just doesn't leave me with crap all over my tools.
I
Which I then
found
have.
I like milliput, but that has been my problem with it as well.
Yeah.
That, and I only found out recently that if you want to get that like really nice milliput slurry or the more liquid milliput that you use to fill gaps on a competition model, I've been using water. I'm like, how does everybody get this so smooth? You're apparently supposed to use alcohol. Like, what? Why does no one say this? They pour a clear liquid in it and they're just like, and then you just mix it up. How am I supposed to know that that's rubbing alcohol? I can't smell through the screen.
Yeah, be rubbing alcohol or IPA or something along those lines. Like every sculpting material has a different solvent. So like I use Super Sculpey a lot at work, for example, and the solvent of Super Sculpey is IPA. So if you want to do a really quick sculpt and then just brush IPA over it really smooths it in the same way as water does with clay. But with epoxy sculpt, you can just use a wet brush. So it is absolutely fantastic for doing organic stuff like skin folds, because you can sculpt the folds in roughly and then do about half of the sculpting just with a stiff brush, which is what I generally do. So I sort of sketch it in with a metal tool. I do about 90% of my sculpting with one tool, which is somewhere. I got it out. Here it is. So if you can see my screen, it's this, which is it's just a double-ended spatula. That's all it is.
Okay.
with one end slightly bigger than the other. This is what I do about 90% of my sculpting with. And then the rest I use mainly these two, which are sort of dental tools. So this is just another spatula, but with a sharp end and a circular end.
Okay.
And then this one is just a little sort of spoon. Between those three, that's all my sculpting tools, unless I'm doing something very specific.
Yeah, I've got some sculpting tools like big flat spatula end and then little bit of pointy one.
Yeah.
But oh wait, what are you? You're pretty close to what you have.
Yeah. That's
Maybe I do have what it takes tool wise. Maybe not skill wise.
That's all it is. You just buy the right tools, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I buy a $2,000 3D printer, I'll know how to 3D print, right?
Yeah,
that's how it
exactly
works, right? You buy the 3D
You'll
printer
not
and
just be-
know how to use the software and all that fun stuff.
You'll not just be disappointed in sitting on an expensive machine you have no idea what to do with.
Oh yeah, the happiest I've been in a long time because I love 3D printed bits, and I love the idea of having a 3D printer and just 3D printing mine on my own all the time. But I know what would happen. I'd try a couple times, it would fail, and then it would just sit there, and then I'd sell it for like $10 and just regret the purchase forever. But then I found, and what made me very happy was finding a guy locally who was starting his own business 3D printing models for people by order. And
Sweet.
and I was just like, oh, thank you, Jesus. So he's like 3D printing stuff for me, like Cerix's green stuff roller to get that Hydra scale. Because I have some plans for that for my Terminators, for my Chaos Army. It's gonna be really cool.
Nice. There is something very satisfying about making your own tools. I do recommend that you try it at least once. You don't see it so much in the hobby side of model making, but it's extremely common in prop making. Like most prop makers have at least a couple of tools they made themselves for a specific job.
So when you say tool, is that like something as simple as a particular bent piece of wire that's been like taped up around a dowel, or is that like to something like complex and machined?
Both. So, like, these are sculpting tools I made for myself, and these aren't so useful with green stuff, but they are fantastic with clay, which is what I made them for. Little loop tools made of brass tube and piano wire.
Okay.
And most clay sculptors will have a vast selection of these. Mainly because they're just super easy to make with just a pair of pliers and a bit of tube and some wire. You can make one in about 5 minutes, and suddenly you've solved your problem for how do I make this mark? How do I do this? How do I do that?
So they're for mark making or for material removal?
Both. So this end would be used for something like skin wrinkles.
Okay.
So that's just a rake made from some random bits of wire. And that end's a loop, so that would be used for removing material.
Gotcha. Are you guys taking notes? I have the recording, so I have everything I need. But if I was trying to take notes, I'd be trying to do it left-handed.
On my profile, I've actually done a little tutorial for how to make this exact sculpting tool. So I think it's on my highlights. If it's not, I'll put it there.
Perfect. And by the way, just a reminder, the one thing I wrote with my left hand, Golden Gretchen. I'm glad to hear that you also like the idea of a conversion sculpture based competition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a painter, man. I convert things, but it's absolutely not what I'm known for.
But I would, well, you did do some 2D art to finalize the color scheme that you will do eventually on your mushrooms, and that's your profile picture actually on Instagram as well. So guys, check that out. You can scroll down and see a full art image of it. Well, you know what? Come on, be a good host. Go find it yourself. Come on, Doc. Find it yourself. but it is a lovely blend of oranges and blues. And here it is. I just pull it up and boop. Nope. Try that again, Doc. And boop. Here it is. Nope. There it goes. There it is. Okay. But like, oh god, I love this. Love this color scheme. Got this like slightly more desaturated like sand color into a dark gray for like the bark of the stalk of the mushroom, so to speak. But then these ethereal blues and like terrifyingly poisonous red oranges. Mwah.
Fun scheme. I really like super saturated colors. I mean, well, I'm never going to be a master of it like, say, Savage Orc guy is. You know, Louise Sudgeon. She's just unbelievable.
I may have heard of Louise.
Really? She's the undisputed master of super saturated color schemes. But I really love really saturated colors and combinations that you don't normally see, and it's just fun. It's a fun way of painting, and it's something that. Oh yeah, so this is important. It's a way of painting that I don't ever really do at work, because that's another thing that is really important when I'm on the job, which is that my paint style and all my finishes have to match the art style of the film, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm working at Aardman, which has a very famous and recognizable art style. So everything I make has to fit within that style. So that's another separation. Anything I paint for myself will look totally different to something that I paint for work. Yeah, the teeth, exactly.
I like it, of course, like every time you say Aardman, like just another chicken run scene just like pops up in my head, and that's all I don't want to be baked into a pie. I don't like gravy.
I don't like gravy. Yeah, so northern.
Love it. Like, and there's so many little jokes that clearly are intended for the British viewing public, but young me is just laughing like, I get the joke. I don't get the joke. It's like, clearly this is the setup. This is the punchline. There's someone's being made fun of here, and I'm gonna laugh along just so it's not me. But
it's painfully British, but it's great. I do love Chicken Run.
It is. I need to rewatch that movie.
Yeah, it's the reason the Oscar for Best Animated Film exists. Didn't exist before Chicken Run came out.
Really?
Yeah. Because they wanted to give it a specific award and couldn't, because that category just didn't exist, because up until that point animation just wasn't really taken seriously, and it still kind of isn't, but you know, in as much as we use the Oscars as a metric for judging film.
Yeah, the only animation film award related piece of trivia that I know off the top of my head is that when Tron was released, despite the fact that it broke all sorts of new ground with special effects, they were quote unquote disqualified for the Special Effects Academy Award because they used computers. Which is hilariously ironic given the current state of most special effects in film.
That sounds about right.
So I saw that and I was like, "Are you? What?"
Yeah. That is another really nice thing about working in specifically stop motion, because it is goofy and it does look kind of crap, and that is the point. You know, you're watching it because it looks a bit dodgy, and because you want to know that everything is handcrafted and it's a little bit rubbish, but it's great.
Young me never understood stop motion animation until I saw the Wallace and Gromit featurette where you see the hyperlapse of the camera of the guys like moving the models, and he's like, this is how long it takes us to shoot like a 5-second segment of film, and like my jaw just dropped because that's like thousands of frames of images, and just like twitch, bring in the other eye that is slightly more squinted, bring in the other one that's slightly more squinted than that. And
last week at work, we shot with 5 animators working all at the same time. We shot 8 seconds of film.
In a day or in a week?
A week.
Ugh.
In a week, that was our full output last week.
So loving Aardman, loving what they do. What are some other animation studios that you hold in very high regard? Because oh god, I'm blanking on their name, but I applied when I was out on the West Coast for a very short period of time after college, because like every young art student, I decided to move out to the West Coast and go to Portland and try to work at Leica. I tried to work at Leica, and
Yeah.
I saw Kubo and the Two Strings, and I freaking lost my mind. Like this is gorgeous. Learning that some of those figures were like 7 feet tall, and
Yeah, the skeleton. It's the
yeah,
largest ever stop motion puppet.
so cool. But yeah, I really wanted to work at Leica, but I definitely don't have the chops for it.
One day.
Unless they start
Yeah.
unless they start somehow hiring someone remote to do all their in-person stuff, then absolutely, yeah. Same thing for Aardman. I'll be your new they're like, "Oh yeah, and we're this is our first work from home hire who's going to be one of our animators. He's going to be controlling this," and I just roll in on a Roomba with a stick and an iPad on it with two little grilling tongs to move the
I
models.
have been a I have been a work from home prop maker. That was weird. I was doing that over lockdown. I have a mate who works in he's an animation director and a fantastic and very fast animator. And I was working for him over lockdown, and I was supposed to be flying out to LA and working with him, and then COVID happened, and then the LA riots happened, and then just flying over was a really bad idea. So instead of going and being in LA for months, I was in my parents' shed making props and posting them to Los Angeles from the north of England, and it
That
sucked.
has to be terrifying with like what could happen in the post.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, okay, just put like 40 hours of work into this single prop. Please don't break.
Yeah. But it made it. It was fine. Everything survived. It was all okay. It was yeah. It was just stressful. Um, yeah, and as well working with the 8 hour time difference between where I was and
Ooh.
LA. That was fun.
Well, I mean, this is a
I,
prime example of that. I mean, it's
well,
midnight for
yeah,
you right now.
it's nearly one. Yeah, and but yeah, it meant that like if we had a meeting, you know, that for them it would be late afternoon. For me, it would be like 2 or 3 in the morning. So during that project, I just became basically nocturnal.
I mean, you'd almost have to be. We have in my group, we have several people. Like one of them's in Poland, and the other one is in Grenoble. So that's France. Yeah. So we have two members of the team that we have to like make sure we schedule our meetings a little bit extra early in the morning so that it's like the end of their workday, so that everyone
Yeah.
no so because some people actually do stay up or get up super early. Like when I was in a different group, I worked with some people in India, and we would have our meetings at 4 o'clock in the morning. So they would still be sitting in their offices at like 6 p.m. in order to, or whatever that time difference would be. They'd be staying late for that meeting, and we were getting up super early just trying to make those times work. Blah. And because it is almost 1 in the morning, I don't want to keep you too long, but I would like to give chat, I'm not ignoring you. I do see all of you here, Lethal Shadows Gaming, and I did see Capper getting super excited about the Golden Gretchen too, because his airbrush broke. So he's like, I got nothing else to do. Let's just make shit. So chat, if you have questions for everything that we've covered, or just some random ass question that you have for our guest, please type it in chat now. And while we wait, tell us about what it was like working in the circus.
Yeah, so I did that for a bit. I still occasionally do. I have a gig booked in whenever it is, October. It's Halloween, so it's October. Um, I I was stuck in a contract for a flat that I couldn't leave, and I left the company I was working at because I wasn't happy. So I needed another job as soon as I possibly could, and I was going to a juggling club at that point. And a mate of mine said, "Well, someone's just dropped out, and I need another performer, and I've got a gig in 2 days. So do you want to come along?" And I sort of completely accidentally dropped into becoming a circus performer. So I started off just with um, performing as a juggler, uh, and I also learned to walk on stilts because it gets you lots of gigs, really. So you go to lots of festivals and town carnivals and events like that. I'm also a fire eater and fire breather and spinner of fire. So I, for a long time, my main income was doing circus gigs and circus work, performance work.
You
So
spin poi? I
staff,
okay.
staff, staff, and point.
I did poi in college. Like every good college art student, I dabbled in something like poi, but only when I was very inebriated. Very
Yeah,
inebriated, and I was very bad at it.
and it doesn't hurt so much when you hit yourself in the nuts, but you
Oh,
will.
oh god. I just had sense memory and flashes of times where I'm trying to be like, look how fast I can go. Wham!
And then 3 octaves higher for the next week.
I need to sit down. Nope, I'm gonna lay down. Oh, that's so cool. I had no idea that you also had spun poi as well as doing fire staff. Like I saw a video of a woman doing fire staff. She like spun in a circle really fast, like shaking it so the sparks like made this really cool ring around her. I was like, oh. Absolutely not. My wife barely trusts me around regular fire. She wouldn't let me around anything near that.
I mean, I worked for a few years as a fire eater, and I managed to maintain a good beard throughout that. So it's it's okay if you're sensible.
That's
Or,
that's something you put on your CV. Like, what give us an example of your attention to detail. I am a fire eater and fire breather, and the beard you see survived all of that, which is dangerous
yeah,
in and of itself. The like even what is it? The slightest inhale and you're in for a bad time.
yeah. So okay, so disclaimer: I'm not teaching people how to breathe fire. I don't recommend doing this, and if you do it, don't say that I told you to do it because I didn't. But yeah, you so if you're eating fire, you have to be exhaling the entire time because otherwise you could inhale burning vapor, which is a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're fire breathing, obviously it's the opposite. You need to be very aware of any wind, any vents, any fans, anything going on, any moving material. I know a girl who was very badly burned on her face because she was performing in a nightclub, and she failed to notice there was a ventilation duct directly above where she was supposed to be breathing. So she breathed, and it just went straight back into her face. So it's technically not very difficult, but it's hard to do it safely. That's where most of the training comes
Yeah, well, I mean
in.
that's the beauty of it. It's one of the things where like, okay, exhale, don't inhale. Have balls
Yeah.
of steel. Okay, I think these are things I can work with. But yeah, now
Yeah.
you're before you go checking the wind, looking for vents. I wouldn't do that. I would be the guy who sets his face on fire,
Yeah.
and I would lose. Well, I'd say what hair I have, but
You're a bearded man. That remaining hair is important.
well, as my father, who was actually over today, we were playing Warhammer. I'm teaching him to play 40K at his behest. I did not badger him. He asked to play, and we were playing, and that reminded me that he has a saying he loves to say, which is God only made so many perfect heads, and the rest he covered with hair. So, joke's on all y'all. My dome's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also blessed with my dad's hairline, which is why I wear a lot of hats. So I
I
know the
just
feeling.
I just accepted it and just started shaving my head. I feel I look better for it. And I mean,
Yeah,
shaved head and beard are kind of in vogue right now. It's kind of the
they seem.
thing. So
Yeah, I am thinking about it.
it'll be interesting when fashion trends change and like long hair comes back and they'll be like, oh, look at all these old photos of you with like a shaved head and a beard. What an absolute loser. I'll be like, yep, times haven't changed. Oh, what up, Merlin? So it doesn't look like we have any questions for you, so I don't want to keep you unnecessarily. I want you to have at least
All right.
a night that you can have to yourself. Who's the gentleman? Dude, this is Grimngribbly from Instagram! Exclamation point shroom for a link to his Instagram. I could like I didn't want grim. That just seemed like people would expect that for like grim dark or something like that. But I'm like mushrooms. So I also did
Sense.
initially make it as exclamation point pigeon man, but that was too long. But we've run the gamut. We've been Merlin models. You shrimp. No, we've been chatting with Grimngribbly, who is among many things a pigeon enthusiast, model maker for work for the film industry, working currently at Aardman, and also a former slash current on again, off again circus performer, stilt walker, juggler, fire eater, fighter, fire breather, spinner, toy spinner.
Stuff.
Yeah, like rollerblading enthusiast. Like he's the kind of guy that makes you go, I should get out more. What an incredible list.
Just don't fall on your shoulder.
Yeah. Well, once it's all healed up, I can fall on it all I want. There's medical grade sutures holding my my labrum to like the bone of my shoulder now.
Oh, so it's bulletproof now.
Well, that part of it is.
Okay.
They can just
Well,
stitch the rest of it together.
everything else is fine. It's all disposable anyway. It's all right.
That's cool. Do they know War Hatter? She was part of the Ardman Academy.
Oh, I don't know that I do. What's is she on Instagram? I'll have to look
Yeah,
her up.
Merlin, do you have a link? Oh, Glorious Badger, a fellow UK member, has decided to raid in with his Badger clan. Hello, Raiders. Well, I'm glad I'm dragging out the end of this podcast so much so you can all works with she works with Midwinter Minis. She's the new like studio like partner assistant person for Midwinter Minis. That's the one who went to Ardman Academy or works at Ardman Academy. And yes, Glorious Badger, hello, welcome to the podcast. This is my my little hangout time with my hobby homies, and we have with us Grimngribbly from Instagram exclamation point shroom in chat for a link to his Instagram where he makes some of the most insane conversions, kit bashes that you have ever seen, and they all have a theme, and that theme is shrooms, baby. And they are absolutely glorious. And I highly encourage you all to get over there and give him a follow and look at all of his amazing work. So, what were you doing today, Glorious Badger? Welcome in, friends. Oh, and like, look, I wasn't lying when I said that he was also a circus performer and animator. He's a fun guy, Rimshot.
I've never heard that one before.
Mm. You notice up to this point, I had avoided the mushroom based punnery. I could have been looking up all kinds of like mushroom names ahead of time and written them down and just gotten all prepared for it to the point where you're just like, oh, you're cutting out, Doc. I click, and then you just hang up on me. You're like, I don't know, man. It's so hot. It fried my internet. I was painting an Imperial Fist Rhino quite slowly. I had lots of words to say. Words, you say? Tell me more. I like words. I've been a fan of words for a long time. So what are you currently working on? I see
Just a second.
I see you. Oh, is this secret? What is he,
A
secret?
couple of things. No, 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 no. A couple of things. So I'm working on this guy, the big guy. Uh, so there's him. This one, the sort of middling-sized guy.
Ooh. Oh, the one with the Venom Thrope arm.
Yish, that's the one. Which is meant to be. So he's a. I don't know if you remember. Well, of course you remember this. It was like half an hour ago. We were talking about how I use the mechanics as a sort of prompt for what I need to make.
Yeah.
Um, this guy's a great example. So, uh, demons of Slanesh have fiends of Slanesh, which are cavalry beasts, and I had no idea how I was going to represent them. And I knew that I wanted them because I mean they're quite strong in the meta right now. I have no idea if that's going to continue with the new codex, but right now they seem to be. So I wanted to find a way of representing this sort of cavalry size beast. I didn't want it to be riding anything because I have a separate idea for that, and because Slanesh demons also have a cavalry unit, right? That's with riders as opposed to just a beast.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent ages just trying to figure out how to do that. And this is essentially what I've stumbled onto, which seems to be working. This is just the test miniature, so I'll get this one finished, and if I'm happy with the build and how it looks, then I'll build the rest. But yeah, I'm still at the sort of stage where I'm kind of tinkering and figuring things out. Like when I eventually get to my army list, I need to build another 3 of these big guys. So I'm getting the testing phase done first.
I know there is not enough money in the world to get me to part with my Sisters of Battle, but what how many hours, just to give people a ballpark idea of what you if this was a commission, how many hours it has taken you to get to this point. Now granted, it's not something you're doing all the time, just like how many hours do you have in the models that you've done so far for this army?
Uh, I don't even want to think about it.
Okay, then no.
Um,
Then don't. Stop before
no,
it's
it's
too late.
fine. And this guy alone, the big dude,
Mm-hmm.
he's converted from Wood Elf Tree Man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he mainly is. Uh, but then chopping and posing and chopping and posing and sculpting and pinning and doing all the other ridiculousness. In this guy alone, I've probably got easily 20, 25 hours, and I'm maybe halfway through. And yeah, I mean the smaller guys less so. I threw them together relatively quickly, but but then every single one is going to need a lot of detail sculpting and filling and making pieces from scratch, and you know, and it's going to be like that with every single miniature in the entire army. That they all need a heavy degree of sculpting and making components from scratch and doing all that stuff. So it's going to take a while.
So do you think that's something that given the tools that you have access to because of Ardman to save, granted, like you've pointed out previously in our conversation, the process is where you find a lot of joy. So there's, for someone like me, when I see like something that looks this cool and I want to play with it, I want to paint it, I'm like, make one, cast it, and make like 3 or the 5 or the however many you need. Because if you're playing a demon's army, like one fiend isn't enough. You need like 6.
Yeah.
So you're gonna make 6.
Well, I'm making one right now just to figure out how to do it, what components to use, how to sort of chop and repose the kits I'm using, and how it all goes together. So I'm doing one as a test miniature, and then I'll do the rest all at once. And I'll just sort of in the same way as you'd batch army, I will batch build the rest of what I need. It's the same process.
Okay.
And then, like for my demonette tests as well, these guys, it's the same thing. I built one from start to finish, And now that I'm happy with the process, I can do the rest, and I'll be able to do it much more quickly because I'm not figuring things out as I go along.
Okay. Because I keep imagining it's like an individual bespoke creation process for every single model. And I'm sure to a certain extent there are small things that differentiate them. But like the
Yeah.
idea of you doing like the 20 to 30 hours on one Keeper of Secrets, and then you're like, okay, time to make a completely different looking Keeper of Secrets and do another 20 to 30 hours on it. I'm like, hey, I can't. I wish. I genuinely envy people like yourself that can not, it's not even just the sculpting, or for others just the painting. Like, oh yes, I've put 150 hours into this model. I'm like, how? But how? How do you do that? Because I can't do that. I get 5 hours into something and my brain's screaming at me, move on. A mushroom's
It's gonna
favorite utensil, a spork. A spork.
Thanks. Who do I have to thank for that?
That is the Amish Stig. He's not the Stig, but he is the Stig's Amish cousin.
I will bear that in mind. Thanks.
He
I think
tries to follow
it's
you on Instagram later, you're like, blocked.
I was going to say, I think it's something that this is kind of something a weird tangent, but it's I think it's something that circus has taught me weirdly, um, because everything within circus is really difficult. That's what makes it fun to watch, right? Because you know it's a difficult thing the person is doing. Um, and so to learn any aspect of really any circus skill beyond a certain point, you need to have a lot. You need to be very self motivated, essentially, and you need to be able to tell yourself that, yeah, this sucks now, but it's going to be really cool later when I'm good at this. And I think I've been able to sort of transpose that attitude into other aspects of my life now. I'm much better at being patient and knowing that, yeah, this is really crap now, but if I put loads of hours in, it's going to be really cool later on. And as well, just because I use it as a release, I'm perfectly happy just tinkering and chopping and changing and reposing and sculpting something because I'm enjoying the process. I'm not necessarily doing it because I want it finished. It will be finished, but it doesn't matter when because I'm enjoying making it.
I need to find a project that gives me that sort of vibe, something I can do in between army painting and knocking out like really quick, like large projects, because that's essentially where I live right now. And I think I
Yeah,
need to, and I mean that's kind of, well, you can't see it, but over there's the big diorama that I haven't been able to really touch in a while. But that's going to be the closest thing I think I'm going to get to this, something that I can like pick up and put down, work on a little bit here or there, and know that that is actually probably going to help me more than hurt me, than just like, nope, it's got to be good enough because I'm going to get this done in 22 hours and the whole thing's going to be finished and in a box and shipped off to a client.
yeah.
But
Um,
I'm learning a
I think
lot
if you
here.
want to do that, I think start with a small passion project. So when I first started doing the Mushroom Guys, I started them actually as a Necromunda gang because I knew that at most I'd need 20 miniatures and it wouldn't take me long to do that. And then by the time I'd made that many, I was like, right, I really like this theme. I really enjoy painting these. I really enjoy building these. Yeah, I'd like to carry it on as a full project. And I think that skirmish games like Kill Team and Warcry and Necromunda are fantastic for sort of testing how much you're going to enjoy a project before you really dive in. Or if you have an idea that you really like the idea of, but you don't think it carries well to a full army, then it's a great way of just getting that idea sort of out and on paper. And then you've got a project that's done and you've enjoyed making the thing, and then you can move on to the next thing. Or you find that you really enjoy it and you want to explore it in more detail, which is what's happened here with the Mushroom Guys that I've been building for now year and a half, I think. Before that, I was mainly an orc builder. That's how I got started.
I hate orcs. Merlin Models has a question for you. Have you ever done a
Go for it.
Warhammer stop motion?
No, I haven't. That would be fun. Uh, no, that would be really cool. It would definitely have to be under my own time. That's not something Album would ever do. But yeah, it's something that would be fun to try.
I agree. Like the second he suggested that, I'm like, yeah, you just run a wire armature like into the shoulders and just kind of like stick the arms on so you could like bend them and move them. Just drill a hole clean through it. I assume. I love how I'm talking about this like I know what the hell you do. Just like, oh,
I can tell you now that an animator would break a wire armature in 10 minutes.
I'm
Animators are clumsy as hell.
maybe I am an animator.
Maybe you are.
I am a very clumsy boy. My wife loves the fact that it wasn't once or twice, but I consistently, when I try to walk through doorways, misjudge how far to one side or the other I am. So I always shoulder check the doorway. Like
That's
if I'm trying,
particularly good. Nice.
and I mean, just like I only mention it because I've now at least started to become more aware that I'm doing it because she's pointed it out. But I've done it 3 times today. All with my good shoulder because I favor that side. So I'm always making sure the other side has plenty of clearance going through the door, and then I just shoulder check it with the other side. Doors here in the U.S. are not that narrow, but they sure seem that way when I'm just like bonk, ow. Oh, it's okay, Pop.
Yeah. I know I work as a juggler, but in my day to day, I'm actually weirdly clumsy. It's like I use up all my coordination on that one thing.
You ever have that sick catch in the kitchen, like you're about to drop like a spoon or something, you catch it behind you, and you're like, "Well, glad no one was here to see that."
Oh yeah, that does happen fairly often. But the downside of that is that, like, well, this happened the other day. I dropped a scalpel and then I caught it by the blade because my juggler's reflex kicked in and I caught the thing. And as I was catching it, I thought, "Oh shit, this is a really bad idea," and it was too late to recall it. So, yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
did you like catch it like through your palm, or did you manage to like grip it, not cut yourself too bad?
I managed to just grip it, but had I not been a juggler, I don't think I would have reacted at all. I'd have just gone, "Oh shit, there it goes." But never mind.
No, but that's I mean, your hands are your livelihood. I'm glad you didn't stab yourself in the palm. I
A
doing
few weeks
my
ago, I spent the day in hospital.
Oh, right, you did.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
you did exactly that. Stabbed your
yeah, with
hand.
a chisel. Yeah,
Ew.
that was a bad day.
That made my whole body like tense up, like thinking about chisels. And I mean, because when I was in college, funny enough, I did zero painting when I switched to being an art major, but I was an intaglio printmaker. So I used a lot of etching tools and like awls and stuff to like carve into these steel plates.
Yeah,
And once or twice, you do have those moments where you're like really digging in and you're really trying to gouge a nice deep dark line into the plate so that when you etch it late or when you ink it later, you'll get that nice deep crisp line, and you all just kind of pops out and goes into your hand. And then you like pull it out and there's like a sucking noise and then it's just blood. But that basically happened on a small scale with paperclip when I was pinning the feet of my Seraphim and Zephyrim for my sister's army, because I'm pinning them by the foot. That's not a lot of plastic there. So I drill in a tiny bit and I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure the pin is in there. So I'm pushing and I'm using my thumb on the other side of the foot to try to push against it. Well, not a lot of plastic. Even if I drill just a little bit in, I go clean through the foot and into my thumb, and I let go, and the foot was holding up through my thumb, and I had to pull it out through both objects. So that would have hurt if I'd only done it the one time. I did it 3 times into the same thumb. And after the third one, I finally said, maybe I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah, you're doing it once, yeah, fine. That's an unlucky mistake. 3 times.
That's just the kind of guy I am. It takes me 3 times to give up on something. So I mean, you could give me props for my stick-to-itiveness, or you could have been like, man, you gotta
Yeah,
you gotta stop.
well done for your stoicism, I suppose. But yeah, no, I do that all the time if I'm drilling something with a pin vise. It usually goes straight under my thumbnail, which is always great.
Oh, literal torture technique.
Mm-hmm.
Next charity event will be us raising money to wrap Rhino in bubble wrap while hobbying. You know, my wife would probably get into that. She would probably think that's a good idea.
I mean, you know, I work in a workshop. I've not seen too many nasty injuries, but there are plenty of hideous stories that we get told.
I can only imagine. And I mean, like, with the potential for injuries, what is like the kind of on an ending note, what is like the coolest tool that you've gotten to work with in between your professional and your for fun hobbies? Like, what's something that like most people don't see or get to use that you've gotten to play with?
Ooh. Oh man, I'm not sure. A couple of years ago, I worked on Death on the Nile, the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
And we were using a water jet cutter to cut massive sheets of aluminium. Hand tools. I have a. It's possibly the scariest tool I own. It's basically an angle grinder, but it's got a circular saw blade. It's the most bulkiest tool I own, and it's so much fun. But the potential for injury is huge.
What do you use that for?
Cutting massive sheets of wood if you don't have a table saw.
Okay.
But it's literally just a circular saw blade on a stick, and it's great fun, but it's terrifying.
On a stick. My wife loved, by the way, my wife loves Death on the Nile. I liked it too, but she loved it.
Yeah. I was mainly working on the ship, the Karnak.
It's such a pretty boat. Ship. But yeah, that I when I was in college, our sculpture department, we didn't have a water jet cutter, but we did have a laser jet, which was pretty. Or well, a laser CNC machine, which was so cool. Being able to cut all these pieces of steel out. That was my favorite thing to do. And that's the coolest tool I ever got to work with. But I did make a musical sculpture, that a sculpture you could play as a musical instrument by touching it.
Oh, sweet. That's really cool.
Yeah, there was an Arduino like MIDI keyboard sort of thing that I wired up, where as long as you were touching a grounding line and then one of the other connection points, you could play it like different tones would come out when you touch different parts. And it was the most highfalutin, like turn your nose up, like sort of artisty I ever got, because I tried to define what the noise, what noise does a shape make? Like, what is the sound a triangle makes? What is the sound a circle makes? What is the sound, like so on and so on and so on. So I like did a bunch of like attempts at sound mixing to try to create different noises so you could like play with shapes and sound. And
what does it sound like? Because I'm imagining something like a theremin.
It would have been close to a theremin, but individual tones, you couldn't change the pitch with touch. So it was just different tones around the spokes of a small wheel. And it was an idea. I had the idea for like a big installation sculpture where you could walk around barefoot and touch a bunch of hanging pipes and like kind of play music as you walked by. But that never happened. Clearly, I had to settle for painting little plastic people on the internet.
It's a close second.
Close second. It was my runner up on my like your dream jobs out of college sort of list. But all right, chat. One last chance. It's showing 7:20 for me. You have 5 minutes. Get them rolling in. Our man's got to go to bed. It's like 1:20 in the evening, morning. What are you gonna have for breakfast tomorrow?
What am I gonna have? Is that a question in the chat?
Sure.
Fuck it. Okay. I will probably have. Oh, my parents came to visit, so I will have a large slice of carrot cake and several cups of coffee. That's my plan.
Ooh, that sounds lovely. It sounds really
so.
good, actually.
Yeah.
Makes me know I need to up my game from bowl of cereal.
Oh, that's the normal. If I bother to have breakfast, it's a bowl of cereal.
Is it
But
so? Are you a sugary cereal guy or like an adult cereal kind of guy?
I usually just don't eat breakfast, but when I do, it is not adult cereal.
So your cinnamon toast crunches, your Fruity Loops.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm still a complete child in that regard.
We sit around and we paint and play with toys. I mean, I don't know if anybody could really claim to be a full-fledged adult.
Yeah, well, yeah, I work as a juggler and model maker. I stopped taking myself seriously a long time ago.
Well, I think everyone could take a lesson from that. Like, I don't think any of us should be taking ourselves nearly as seriously as some of us want to. Quick question. I'm looking for a good pour application to make bits for my GW minis. Any recommendations for a system or product for it? I'm assuming stuff like blue stuff?
Well, if you're looking for a poorer application, you'll want a condensation cure silicon. You guys are in the US, so there's a company called Smooth-On. Their products are a lot easier to get hold of in the US. I hear they do tons of different products. Forge World actually casts their miniatures in Smooth Cast 301 or 306. I can't remember. They make fast cast that Forge World uses, and Forge World just mixes a tiny bit of black pigment into it. I think it might be Smoothcast 301. And as for silicon, they make a ton of different silicons, but you want just a condensation cured 2-part silicon. They make a ton of different varieties. Ideally, you want a slightly softer one because that's just easier to peel off, and it's likely to last longer.
So why something like that as opposed to blue stuff?
Longevity, I suppose, and detail. I do use blue stuff. I do press mold some things, but making a mold out of silicon means that you can cast in resin or plaster or whatever you want. Really, you can cast resin in blue stuff, but resin will tend to fatigue the material and stop it from working quite quickly.
Okay.
And blue stuff just doesn't have the detail retention that silicon does. So there you go.
What great question. Thank you.
I think have a look at the Smooth-On website, but you'll want a condensation cured 2-part silicon with a low shore hardness. You want it to be soft.
Yeah, that was a hell of an answer. I think no one on Twitch right now would have been able to answer that question with that level of like knowledge and certainty. Unless you just whipped all of that out of your ass, in which case, bravo. Holy crap. That was amazing. What you're actually gonna need is it's gonna be a low condensate silicon. That's right. They fit so many of these babies in this. Woo-wee. But folks, this has been a lovely conversation with Grimngribbly. Again, exclamation point Shroom, SHROOM in chat. For a link to his Instagram, please go follow him, check out his awesome work, and like the living hell out of it. He's an incredibly talented artist, both for his personal hobby and for his professional hobby, working at Aardman Animation and doing a bunch of other super amazing stuff in his past, as well as being a juggler and a rollerblader and pigeon walker and talker and speaker and learner and listener. He's an incredibly nice human being too. If you ever have any questions, I'm sure like could folks reach out to you on Instagram with their questions?
Please do.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from people.
So Do you have any other final words before I let you probably get some sleep or try to?
Yeah, it's 1:30. Yeah. So what you were saying earlier about how do you get started? How do you start sculpting? How do you sort of push the boat out? Start with something sort of simple and low pressure. Um, and on something forgiving. So like I used to do most of my projects used to be very extensive kit batching projects with very little sculpting. And they almost always ended up being orc related because orcs are just incredibly forgiving. You can make whatever you want as long as there's a big engine on the back and a big gun on the front. And they're a fantastic way of learning um, kit bashing and using fan materials. I use a lot of brass, beads, random tubing, bits and pieces that I find. In model making, it's called greebling, but greebling just means random detail that doesn't do anything, essentially. So I think pick a sort of forgiving project and start with that and build up your. I think the equivalent for sculpting would be something like a Nurgle army, because there is nothing easier to sculpt than Nurgle, just gross flesh, and if it looks wrong, that's fine. It's chaos. That's the whole point. Start with something simple and forgiving that you're going to enjoy and that will probably look good when you're done, and build up your confidence that way. And start with small projects. Don't think I'm going to build this custom themed army, because you'll probably really struggle and fall on your face, and then you'll never want to do that again. So ramp up with something like a kill team or a Warcry warband or a Necromunda team to test your idea and see if your current skill level is up to it, I suppose.
And you can always go back and try again later.
Exactly. Be gentle to yourself. It's not homework, it's your hobby.
It's not homework.
If you're not enjoying it, don't do it.
It's not homework, it's your hobby. Damn, you are really full of like the really good witticisms and like just knowledge bombs today, and I'm very, very proud to be able to be here for these moments, to have my life changed by them. And I hope, chat, you feel the same. So a big hearty thank you to you, my man. Go get some sleep. Thank you so much for being my guest. And everybody, Grimngribbly, what, like, give it up. Get some hype in chat. You have yourself a lovely evening. Bye, bud.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. Bye.
What a lovely, lovely time.